Yang Speaks is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Stop putting your online data at risk. Get protected at expressvpn.com/yang. Do you have a take on whether cancel culture is like at the right place, a little bit overboard, still more work to be done?
Ugh. You know, I go back and forth on that, but yeah, I'm not for somebody does one thing wrong and then we banish them.
I mean, in your case, it's more complicated too, for the fact that you actually know a lot of people as human beings, and there's like a natural temptation. If you know someone as a human being, you'd be like, oh, like I know that person. That's like a human being. Sometimes you know the human being, you're like, oh, that person is an asshole. Like, what is going on?
Got him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then other times you'd be like, that person's actually okay. And that was just some really dumb thing. I wish we had a finer way to distinguish between those two situations.
You can see it. You can see where people don't come to their defense. Like
really,
yeah,
really, is that the way it is?
Yeah, everybody's like, okay, finally got him. But when people come out and say like, hey, come on, that guy's not like that. Oh, come on, this person is a good person. Da da da. Then it's like, okay, come on, somebody just made a slip. It's cool. Leave them alone. Yeah.
I am thrilled to welcome to Yang Speaks the incredible comedian, writer, author, actress, activist, you name it. What hasn't she done? Wanda Sykes. Welcome, Wanda. It's great to see you. Great to have you here.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I mean, yeah. What else do I have to do, right?
Well, we were just talking about how the fact your wife and kids are in France and you're here in the States with us, and we're all thinking like, wow, the French are smart not letting us in. It's freaking terrible that we're all, looking up to the rest of the world, because I think at this point they're through the worst of it. They're probably reopening. Your family is probably sending you pictures of everyone outside.
Oh man, my kids, they went to an amusement park. They
no way.
Ride roller coasters, but they're all still wearing the mask. But they the bowling alley. I mean, you know how many germs get passed at a bowling alley, but they're in there having a great time. They did the right thing, early on.
Well, it's good for them, not so good for us. So in your case, you're probably a little bit like me, where like I'm patriotic American. I'd feel a little bit bad about going someplace else, even though like on a rational level it would make sense. And in your case, your wife's family is from France, so that makes a world of sense. So one of the things I know we have in common is the Poor People's March that happened. It was meant to happen live in DC. Did you connect with Reverend Barber like during that time, and like how did you get connected with the march?
Well, I follow him on social media, and I guess I liked enough of his posts and retweeted enough of his things that he slid into my DMs, and he asked me if I would join and participate, and I was like, absolutely, because I believe in what they're doing and what they stand for.
Yeah, me too. I had a chance to sit down with Reverend Barber during the campaign. They got some of the presidential candidates to talk about our plans on poverty. And it was incredible to me how, frankly, in my mind, like underappreciated that movement was, where for all of the good they're doing, I mean, at this point, they're speaking to the real life situation of 70-80% of Americans at this point, like, half of whom can't afford an unexpected $400 bill. Everyone's living paycheck to paycheck. And I love the fact that they're trying to take Dr. King's teachings and philosophies and implement them now, decades later. I mean, it's decades overdue in my mind. And it's something that I was thrilled to see you working on with them, because to me that message is hitting home really powerfully right now. Like, we have a chance to actually make some changes in a big way because of the fact that so many people are struggling.
Oh, absolutely. And really, when you think about it, that was like Dr. King and some of the most radicalist, ideas that he had. And a lot of people think that's what made him even more dangerous, and probably what, caused his assassination. When he's, trying to unite people on such a basic level, and I think it's just, like you said, the decades overdue, because it's just the basic idea that you work 40 hours a week and you still living below poverty. It's especially in this country, it's like that should automatically be like, hey, something's wrong here. This is not how we should be as a country.
Yeah, it's incredible how much we've been brainwashed, where even like the language people have argues around the same thing, where it's like hardworking Americans, or like people are trying to work. And one of the things I said on the trail all the time, and this as a parent now, is like, who works harder than me is my wife, who's like with the kids, one of whom is autistic, and that kind of work isn't really attributed any economic value. And when people talk
Right.
about like, oh, hardworking Americans, they're always talking about the 9 to 5, that 40-hour work week. That isn't a reality for most of us anymore. Like, we don't have an economy where you wake up and go to the factory and like you work from 9 to 5 and then you punch out. No, at this point, those jobs are getting done by machines. Like, more and more people are working in these gig temp jobs where you're at the whim of, the Uber or the Lyft or whatever it is you're working for. You don't get benefits. You don't have a real path forward. And like, we're pretending like the economy still works the way it did in the 70s. So the fact that Dr. Barber and you and others were taking that cause to DC, I mean, I would have loved to have seen how many people that we could have gotten out, if not for the fact that we're in a time of COVID, because I know it was virtual. But what was your experience like with them?
So my part was mainly just pointing out that the majority, of poor people is made up of women and children. We're hit the hardest. And it's like you were saying, a lot of women make up for, take care of the homes, and it's work that doesn't count in here. And also, to me, I thought the approach was right the way they did it, because instead of, us who we're not in that category, we're not struggling, we're pretty blessed to step aside and just let the people who are actually in these situations to let them tell their stories. And I think that's what was so effective, is using our platforms to shine a light, to let these people speak, to, like they say, to give them a voice. And I think that's, to me, that's what that drew me to wanting to work with them, because I'm like, look, I'm not going to stand up here and talk about, what it's like to be poor. I mean, am I a generation away from that, but still, I think we need to hear from people who, who are suffering.
Yeah, which is most of America at this point.
Right.
So here in Yang Speaks, we care a lot about data. We think that our data is getting sold and resold, and we're getting packetized and commoditized in a way that's really bad for democracy and mental health and a lot of other things. And we're not seeing a dime of it. It's a drag, and they're keeping track of everything we do. So what do you do about it? One way to do it is to use ExpressVPN, and VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. All these high-end companies insist that their employees use VPN, so that it's like they're logging into a safe and secure server, no matter if they're at home or at a Starbucks or whatever the heck it is. And you can do the same thing, and this way your internet activity is anonymous. They can't track you. They can't sell and resell it. So if you want to protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET and Wired, visit expressvpn.com/yang and you can get an extra 3 months for free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/yang, expressvpn.com/yang to learn more.
I'm literally using this right now to stream our podcast ads in our podcast. So it doesn't slow down your video and audio. Have no issues with it. expressvpn.com/yang. Get your discount. It's freaking fantastic. Check it out.
So has Vice President Biden called you to, just to pick your brain, get some advice as far as like his platform?
So I've got a call later this week with 2 people who are working on his tech policy. So we're going to put our heads together on that. And I talked to Joe last week because I co-hosted an event for him. But when I talked to Joe, we've bonded a fair amount over the fact that the middle class may disappear because our economy is changing in various ways. And he was one of the first people, actually, and this was months ago, during one of the early debates where he came to me during one of the breaks in the debate and said,
he came to you and said, "Can you get that Kamala off my back, please?"
And then after he said that, he then said, "Yeah, we should really do something about this fourth industrial revolution because I'm scared that it's gonna eviscerate the middle class." And then but back to the Kamala thing, yeah. So Joe and I have talked extensively about the nature of the problem. When I see him now, because in part, Wanda, this is funny. I'm someone that. I believe he is looking to try and address tech and economy related issues, but I've been in his shoes as the candidate. And when you're the candidate, you have so much stuff that you need to do in balance that the last thing you necessarily need is someone coming and being like, "Hey, I'm going to now tell you what's what with this issue or this issue." He's just got he's got to do what his team's telling him. So I'm plugged in to the Biden team. And I talk to Joe, periodically, but I don't try and do a brain dump into him because I understand what he's facing. We got a freaking ride Joe and his team through the finish line November, and then get Trump the hell out of there, and then we can all get our heads together and figure out how to rebuild this country that's now devastated on multiple levels. But yeah, I saw Joe last week, and on the trail, I'll tell you a random story. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I thought it was really pretty wise. So New Hampshire candidates were all doing our things, blah, blah, blah. And then Paul Giamatti comes up, and he essentially was like a political tourist where he decided I'm going to watch half a dozen different candidates do their things in little gatherings, because we all had little gatherings scheduled. So Paul just hopscotched around to different events just so you could do it all in a day or two. And when you're in that context as a candidate, as I was, you run into Joe by accident, every few weeks in one of the early states. And so Joe and I would run into each other every few weeks, really for the last 2 years in my case, because I declared really early. I was running around waving my flag before anyone was paying any attention. And then Joe and the gang joined in, and all of a sudden, there were periods when I was definitely getting big-footed by other candidates where it'd be Andrew Yang's here, but never mind about him.
Yeah, right.
Joe is here. There was that. Yeah, so Joe and I are in touch, and I'm very, like you, I'm very, very excited about him defeating Donald Trump in just a few months.
Yes. I know my girl was we got to get behind him. I was we got to get behind him, in front of him, on the side of him. We got to prop him up and get him through there, man. Because
yes.
we cannot do more of this.
Well, people who know my thinking on this, it's like I think Joe's going to win. Truly, like I think so many of us are really shell shocked to be like, oh snap, like Trump, pulled it off once before, like he might like pull it off again, and there's some uncertainty around the vote. But any objective analysis to me is like Joe's going to win. Like we've got 72% of Americans who say this is the worst time in American history since they've been alive. That's not exactly a climate where everyone's like, yeah, like I want 4 more years of this. There are like millions of people who voted for Trump who are like, this sucks. Like, this is pretty terrible. So I think Joe's going to win, but you and I and other people have to try and make sure it happens. Like, we got to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the people, especially young African Americans and who are, out protesting, got to get them to the polls. People, they got to, that same energy.
I mean, we got to face facts. This is a binary decision. Like, it's going to be President Trump or President Biden, and we guys got to make it President Biden. And I'll tell you, like, having hung out with Joe, he's open to different points of view. Like, he's not like a particularly ideological guy. Like, he's looking around being like, okay, like, what's the plan? So I am going to be chiming in on some tech policy a little bit later this week, happily, with the folks that that are helping to craft that. And I think that there are major issues around technology that we need to play catch up on. This is a uniquely and distinctly stressful, anxiety-ridden time for us all. And you got to take care of yourself right now. You have to try and get exercise and have a routine and get some structure. But even after all that, you know what would also help is having someone to talk to. And I don't mean like Zooming your buddy and being like, hey, what's up?
Or talking to Zach all the time.
I mean like talking to someone about the fact that that shit sucks, that maybe, you're feeling some degree of negative emotion that it's new to you. And I'm thrilled to say that right now we have a new sponsor of the podcast, BetterHelp.com, that will actually hook you up with a therapist and resources online. It's convenient, professional, affordable. You just find a licensed professional counselor who will just talk you through stuff. And as usual, we have a deal for you. But over 1 million people are already using BetterHelp. That's HELP.com. And if you go to betterhelp.com/yang, you'll get 10% off your first month by being one of our podcast listeners. So that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/yang to get yourself some help. And there's absolutely no shame, nothing negative, no stigma about it. I mean, I saw a counselor when I was in high school, and after that I said everyone should have one of these all the time, forever. So yeah, get yourself some help at betterhelp.com/yang.
So I'll say in our own organization, Andrew, at Humanity Forward, we're now in month 4, 5 of working from home. And I would say the entire team, self included, we're all collectively losing our minds. No offense, guys, if you're listening, but it's true. So I've recommended this to our team and to use it there because, geez, man, like the world's burning. We're stuck inside. We have to stare at screens all day long. The lack of like hope and optimism is something we're trying to overcome on this podcast, but it's still real. So that's BetterHelp, HELP, betterhelp.com/yang. Get 10% off your first month, and it'll welcome you as a Yang Speaks listener. Hope you guys check it out.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Wanda, is like you were like one of the trailblazers in so many ways. Like you went and carved this incredible path for yourself. You eventually come out as homosexual, and it sounded like that was a difficult process because your family was quite conservative. Now you're married, have a beautiful family, 11-year-old twins, and then you were a writer on Roseanne, and like they had this issue where obviously like Roseanne ended up having some terrible statements that came out on Twitter, and then I believe you left that show. But on the same time, like I see your comedy, and your comedy is so real. Like your comedy is like no punches being pulled. Like Wanda Sykes is like, just like telling it like it is, be real. And there's so many comedians from your era that have issues with the fact that it seems like the goalposts keep moving for comedy, or the goalposts keep moving for art generally, where like if artists were to talk about certain things X years ago, we'd all be like, yeah, that's fine. But now it seems like the rules have shifted. And you, again, are like one of the original trailblazers of the era. You've seen and done it all. Like, do you have a take on whether cancel culture is like at the right place, a little bit overboard, still more work to be done?
Ugh. You know, I go back and forth on that. To me, it's up to the audience. The audience gets to decide who's canceled and who's not. I mean, we can all say, "Hey, that's wrong. This person should go away or be canceled." But if that person, says, "Hey, I'm doing a show," and the audience shows up and buys tickets to see that person, then who are we to say, you're wrong, that you're not allowed to, to support, or this is the comic that you like. No, we're not going to allow this to happen. If that person's not for you, then fine. Then don't go see them. Don't go support them. But yeah, I'm not for somebody does one thing wrong and then we banish them.
Well, particularly in comedy, and just as a human being too, and as a presidential candidate, I can share this. Mm-hmm. You stick a mic in my face often enough, like eventually I'll say something really stupid.
Of course.
That's just humanity.
Absolutely.
And as a candidate, like that, there was very much that dynamic where people, it almost seems like they're trying to get you to say something problematic so that they can be like, see, look at this person and look at this statement. And so that they'll like ask you questions that you could tell are meant to try and like get a rise out of you or somewhat like contentious. And then like as a candidate, you had to essentially just check any kind of humanity at the door in terms of like an emotional response. Because if you react emotionally, then it's like, oh, like then like we got him because he reacted harshly when we like subtly insinuated that he was, like a racist or a terrible person or whatever the insinuation was. So I understood at least that part of it as a candidate. It's like, mm-hmm. like, okay, I get it. But like, if you catch anyone on film and like their worst moments, like we'd all look freaking terrible, like just as human beings. And so then if you say, it's like, look, I have this moment of this person saying something regrettable. So let's try and expunge their existence from, like the culture or from social media or whatnot. What you said initially to me was like the way it used to be, which is like, hey, I don't like your art. I don't like your comedy. So I will not watch or consume it. And I will just turn this way.
Does that make sense? I mean,
that made sense to me.
Yeah.
But then now there's like a new thing. It's like, I don't like what you're saying. And now I will somehow condemn you. I will somehow try and tell others that like, if you're associated with this person, there's another part of it too, that like that there's like this strange, supposed to be like transferal of attitudes or beliefs. Like if you said something that I disagreed with and I sat and had this conversation with you, then I'm also actually in the wrong because like I'm going to somehow be either getting your attitudes and beliefs from you or somehow like helping you transfer them to others. And it's like, can't people just have a conversation and like not like imagine that I agree with everything that the other person is saying? I mean, happens in real life all the time. Like, I talk to my neighbor. My neighbor thinks all sorts of stuff that I'm probably not a fan of, but it's like, like right. We can still talk over the fence and, like no problems were had. So I'm with you on that level. It's like the negation of your own consumption, like A-okay. But then like the negation of anyone's consumption, it's like, come on, people should be able to see what they want to see.
Right.
mean, in your case, it's more complicated too for the fact that you actually know a lot of people as human beings, and there's like a natural temptation if you know someone as a human being, you'd be like, oh, like I know that person. That's like a human being. Sometimes you know the human being, you're like, oh, that person is an asshole.
Yeah,
like,
I
what is going
finally
on?
got him. Yeah, I'm like, finally.
Yeah, and then other times you'd be like, that person's actually okay, and that was just some really dumb thing. I wish we had a finer way to distinguish between those two situations.
You can see it. You can see the where people don't come to their defense. And you know, like
really, is that the way it is?
Yeah, everybody's like, okay, finally got him. But when people come out and say like, hey, come on, that guy's not like that. No, come on, this person is a good person. Da, da, da. Then you know it's like, okay, come on, somebody just made a slip. It's cool. Leave them alone. Yeah.
Well, that's encouraging, Wanda. You know, we should definitely take a beat and look around and be like, can anyone come to this person's defense and rescue?
Right.
Because if so, like, I'll just like wait a day to like decide whether I think that could be like at least an improvement over the current process. I mean, in an ideal world, and this happens to me too. In an ideal world, you'd actually like, this is not realistic, but this is the ideal. You'd actually just be able to call a person up and be like, hey, so what's up? Like, what was that about? And then you like hear what the backstory was. Of course, we never had that opportunities, and a lot of the time someone's career is on the line, so then they'll end up having like a very like rehearsed, crafted statement and the rest of it, which in some ways is really unfortunate because you kind of just want someone to be like, all right, like, you know, this was the deal.
Yeah, exactly. And the ones that are so well crafted, they feel so fake, and you know the person is just saying it to try to save their career, you know, and then you're like, nah, this is not going to do it. But I would rather for somebody to say something, if they say something, you know, stupid or whatever, racist, whatever, and they get called out on it, for them to go, wait a minute, what was wrong with what I said? You know, I'd rather for them to start at that point, like, what was wrong with it? So at least now people are saying, well, because it's this, and they go, oh man, well, I didn't think that, but okay, I can see it that way. Okay, my bad, man. I'm sorry. I won't. You know, at least you see that there's some growth there. They're learning something, but don't apologize if you don't know what you're apologizing for.
There are parallels to politics again with this, because you see also like the very, very polished statements where like, you know, someone misspeaks or there's a gaffe and then it's like, oh, like I'm really, really sorry, and like here are like the things. I mean, this happened to me on the trail too, where, you know, like I was accused of doing something, and then these consultants around my campaign team were like, all right, you need to apologize for this immediately. And I was like, does anyone want to ask me whether this actually happened or whether like this is a real thing? You want to check on that? And then after they checked, eventually, so when I said that, they were like, is this real? And I was like, it is not real. And apologizing for it is like the opposite of what we should do, because it happens to be completely untrue. And like, I got the sense too that the consultants just assumed it was true because probably they've been around other situations where it was true. was probably it. But also like, that's like their knee jerk reaction, because they're like trying to protect the, they're trying to protect like the institution or the franchise, you know, like in this case, it was like, hey, I was a candidate, I'd raised millions of dollars, they're getting paid by me. And I didn't have that many consultants because I really disliked consultants. But we had a couple for media stuff and some other things. And so when they came out with this guidance, like they're just trying to protect the franchise. And meanwhile, they didn't even check with a human being to be like, hey, like, what you know, what's going on? If we could somehow humanize these communications and do what you just suggested, where the person's like, what's wrong with what I said? Like, can someone explain to me like where I went wrong? And then, you know, have like a little bit more of like a human education process, because like there's like a real, there's like faux shame. You know, you can sense it in some of these communications, and it's preceded by this faux outrage, where it's like, are people that like actually like upset by what this person said. Like half the time it's shit that someone says around you casually, like, but they're not a public figure, obviously. It's just some knucklehead, like, or whatnot, like says it around you, and like you don't go around like, like berating like your freaking like uncle or grandfather or whatever it happens to be. And so that like there's this like there's like a faux outrage, and it like rises up, and then it's followed by like this faux penance or faux shame, and it's like, I will think, I will reflect, I will retreat into my cave, I will do the stuff. It's like we need to like tamp both of those reactions down ideally.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The fake anger, that just bugs me. It's just the worst, because it's like, I know you don't give a shit about this, but you just feel like this is how you're the right way I should react, But really, what's so ridiculous about all of this is that Trump has said some of the
craziest shit ever.
The most offensive shit ever. I mean, grab him by the pussy. I mean, if you start there, and he still became president. So it seems like everybody should get at least 3. We should all get like just 3. You can say whatever crazy shit you want to say 3 times, and nobody can mess with you.
Okay, so if you're like us, you listen to music and maybe you have that headset, but you're noticing some folks around you have these earbuds or the AirPods or these like wireless things. And you're like, wow, maybe I should get myself some of those. But maybe you're daunted by the fact that some of them are really expensive. Now, we were sent some Raycon earbuds, and they're like the sweet spot where instead of breaking the bank, they start at about half the price of the earbuds that have been scaring you off. I've got a pair right now in my hand, and my ears was one in each, which is sort of bizarre. But they work great. They actually are really snug and indiscreet. Like people can't even tell you have them on necessarily. And they're freaking beautiful, stylish. Celebrities love them. So some of the celebrities that use them, because like I kind of like some of these people: Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, and J.R. Smith. NBA champion J.R. Smith use these earbuds. So they are the sweet spot. I'm a fan. Raycon's earbuds hit the mark. Now's the time to get their new everyday earbuds, and you can get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/yang. That's buyraycon.com/yang. for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. You can join the future. You could be one of those cool people or annoying people that are around you that have made you feel deficient. Soon you will make others feel deficient at raycon.com/yang.
I'll say this. I've bought the expensive earbuds and I've lost them. Then I feel like I've lost. It's like losing a cell phone. These are not that you designed to lose them. But if you do lose them, they're less expensive. And with us, you get a pretty good discount. So buyraycon.com/yang, get 15% off. Buy as many as you can. And they sound great.
Great gifts, too. Great
gifts. Yeah, give the gift of Raycon.
It was funny, Wanda, because like I was new to politics, and I'm like a recently minted public figure where, like no one knew who the hell Andrew Yang was not that long ago. And so the lessons you learned when you were coming up in the, like the 90s and becoming a public figure, like I kind of got downloaded into me very, very quickly in a compressed time frame, and you figure them out because like I'm adaptive, and I was like, all right, I'm trying to get a job done. And in my case, the job was to try and abolish poverty and get universal basic income across the finish line. I don't know if you have a viewpoint on universal basic income as something that we should adopt.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I agree with it. Yeah. I don't know why. Like, who I don't understand why people would be against it, or maybe just like we're just not aware because they don't talk about it enough of how like with the with what they did with the COVID situation, give all this money to corporations. And I read there was like a guy who owns a private jet company. He got like $27 million, but that's fine. But then when we say, hey, can we extend another $1,200 to, to individuals, the people, they're like, oh, we can't just be giving away free money. There's welfare. Why did they attack the poor people, the people who really need it? And it's like rich people, it just sickens them to think of rich people not being rich. Like because they're thinking, looking at
like so offended by it. It's like, this rich person might actually have to cut back on something.
Exactly. I mean, it's that. I mean, I guess if I was in that situation, I guess it's like, oh no, because that's like taking my money. I don't understand it. It's so. I mean, well, I do understand it, but I just think it's just disgusting how we operate in this country.
Wanda, high five. You're for universal basic income. This makes me so happy. I'm going to give you an air high five over the Zoom. This is, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, of the $3 trillion we just printed, like less than 15% of it went to us. It's like that, like they just freaking forked over tens, hundreds of billions of dollars to these megacorps. And I understand how these systems work, where like if you just gave us money, and then there were these businesses that then were frankly like, having massive problems because like they like, had to go bankrupt. That would be actually okay. Like that's what the bankruptcy system is for. Like you could go and then rationalize like, and I'm not actually for this. It's like, I'm okay with trying to put our economy in suspended animation. But you start with the people. It's right. Like you don't put the companies in suspended animation so that the private jet company gets like tens of millions. And then the person who worked at that airfield, like refueling jets for like $10 an hour, like goes home and like has no idea what the hell to do.
Right.
Like that's like the screwed up part. And like, I agree with you that there is some kind of preservation of the status quo that's like embedded in what's in legislators' minds, where it's like, oh, you're a mega corp, like you can't go bust, like that would be unfathomable. But then like that person working at that airfield, like them going bust, it's like, and people have caught on to the bullshit. And like that's one of like the great things about the stimulus. And this is a terrible time. And like, like it breaks my heart, all the suffering and pain and death. But the myth that we didn't have enough money to go around, everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? Because like you just freaking like, wrote a check for $3 trillion. And then people looking around being like, why did I not get like more than that $1,200 I got spent weeks and months ago? I mean, 74% of Americans are for emergency cash relief right now, including a majority of Republicans. So like, why are we not giving cash to people? Like we're still just looking at plowing money, and the government dropped the ball so miserably on like COVID. And like people put all the blame on Trump, and Trump deserves like a ton of the blame because he like really screwed things up at the top. But like you could legitimately look around and being like, wait a minute, like where is the contact tracing? Where is the testing? It's not like, that there are like problems at every level. Like I was looking in, you probably saw some of the headlines, but yeah, like some of the government failures they're looking at being like, this was like a mammoth historic level failure that has us in like this situation, and you can't even bail us out with the cash. It's like you like leave us in this state, and then you're like, and you're gonna somehow like survive, even though like your job like disappeared for like the last 4 months. It makes me so angry, Wanda. I'm thrilled that you're pro universal basic income. That's like a freaking awesome thing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's it always amazes me how like when like let's say we're talking about raising the minimum wage or whatever, and then they always throw out the argument of, well, you can't make companies in a bit small. They always like to put it on small business. You can't make small businesses pay employees $15 whatever an hour. They can't afford it. I was like, well, then maybe they shouldn't be in business then. Or maybe you need to rethink your business plan, raise your prices, whatever. But they always put it on small business or the little guys, instead of what they're saying is corporations, Walmart, they don't want to pay that money. They don't want to, pay. They don't want to pay that the hourly wages. But
or maybe those businesses could pay $15 an hour if all of their customers had an extra couple $1,000 a month.
$1,000,
like the freaking spend to that business. Yeah. We're like subsidizing, like you said. I mean, there was something around like McDonald's or Walmart. They like were instructing people how to access public benefits. It's like they knew they weren't paying enough for folks to get by. We're like, and like the public has been subsidizing those businesses to like this massive degree. Like this is like the big hope I have. I mean, this is a difficult, tragic time, but we have to do things differently on the other end. And I think that after we get Trump out of there and Joe is in the White House, we're going to get together, and I mean you and me as well. We're going to get together and be like, okay, like how do we start doing things differently? And I'm doing something that most Democrats, would like throw rocks at me for or whatever, but I'm already like planning for like the Joe Biden victory. Like at this point, I'm thinking like, okay, like we're going to do the work. We're going to kick ass. We're going to get young people excited. We're going to get out there and vote. Joe's going to win. I'm the math guy. The numbers say Joe's going to win. Joe is going to win.
Okay.
And then the question is like, what then? Like then really the work begins, because we're still going to be in a real freaking mess. And we're going to have to dig out. We're going to need like a new deal. It's going to include universal basic income, like the Green New Deal, criminal justice reform and police reform. How the heck is there not a George Floyd law on the books yet? I mean, you literally had so many of us like out there protesting on the streets, and you like still, like there's so much that needs to be done. It's one reason why I'm passionate too about these down ballot races, where you have to try and get enough people in there so that we can make real changes.
That's the key. Yeah.
Because it's ridiculous that, like, again, 74% of Americans want emergency cash, and like Congress just isn't getting its shit together.
Yeah. That's like, come on, Amy, let's get Mitch out of there. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah. I know you and I, supported other candidates initially in that race. I just texted with Charles Booker actually yesterday, but now it's Amy, so screw it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Like, it's a little bit like supporting other candidates and now supporting Joe. It's like, let's get real, let's get practical, and let's get the right people into Washington. We're going to talk about something that you think about every waking moment: stamps. Well, you might not think about every waking moment. Maybe not waking every waking moment.
But you dream about them.
But you have to mail something periodically. I literally have to mail something right now. And the old way, the 20th century way, is go to the post office, wait online, do all that jazz. So what's the 21st century way? Stamps.com. You can order whatever you need. You essentially can have a post office on your phone or computer. They'll even send you a freaking scale if you set up your account, and get discounts of up to 62%. This is really just a smarter way to mail stuff. That's actually just the truth of it. We use stamps.com religiously on the campaign trail because there was a lot of postage getting mailed out right now. Actually, business tip from Andrew Yang. Apparently right now people are reading their mail at higher levels than normal. So if you're trying to reach people, mailing stuff is a good idea right now. And right now, if you want to sign up for stamps.com, you can get a 4-week trial plus free postage and that digital scale I mentioned without any long-term commitment. Just go to stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, type in Yang. That's stamps.com, enter Yang, and then you too can enjoy 21st century convenience with 20th century post office goodness. Oh, Wanda, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for connecting. Do you have anything that you're working on, or like an event that you're going to be at upcoming that you want to let people know about?
Well, I have a show, but we're not sure when we're going to get, released because we still have like 7 episodes to shoot, but we're shooting a show for Netflix called The Upshaws.
So that's a difficult calculation for Netflix because right now they're like, we really want to put new content out there real bad. We would love to put those 5 episodes out, but then they're like, do we wait until the gang gets back together and makes the next 7 episodes?
Yeah.
Do you know how they make those decisions?
I don't, but my thoughts is that they want you to be able to promote it. So in this situation, it's kind of hard to hit all the late night shows and all the morning TV because, we're stuck in this quarantine situation. So
is it hard or is it easy? No, I'm kidding. Be like, just go on into the living room. Be like, hey, Jimmy. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, sure. I'm sure Netflix has their algorithm. They could consult the mighty algorithm and say, technology. What do we do with the first 5 episodes of the Upshaws?
Right.
the
sure. Yeah.
Well, Wanda, please do keep us posted. So thrilled that you're pro universal basic income,
yes.
and looking forward to celebrating with you come January 2021 when there's a new president in the White House.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please do subscribe to Yang Speaks and click on notifications so we can let you know every time we have a new episode.